How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Jason. I'll be your host on this CFL talk show, Hussey's Huddle. In this video, we recap Week 8 of the 2022 CFL season. But really quickly, before we get started, if you want to support the channel, the best way to do it is by hitting the like button and subscribing to Hussey's Huddle for more CFL content just like this. And with that said, let's get started with today's video. So normally I would have this review out a lot earlier than I am this week, but better late than never. So starting with the first game, which was Montreal and Hamilton, with Hamilton just barely hanging on 24-17. And the thing that everybody is talking about with this one is that Trevor Harris was removed on the second to last play of the game. The backup had to come in for the last play of the game. He threw an interception, and the game was over. So, very controversial end to this one. And I think if I was a Montreal fan, I would understand why they are upset by, removing your starting quarterback, especially when you look at the replay, and it really wasn't like one of those head-to-head kind of contact kind of things. I think that, when you look at the replay, it didn't look as bad as it did live. But at the same time, I think when you look at it from a neutral league point of view, you can't pick and choose when the league removes players in these instances, because there have been plenty of instances we've complained about the league not removing players from dangerous situations like this. So honestly, unfortunate that it happened at such a key moment of the game. I think that is really what's the major problem here, and why people would probably be very upset with this removal of Trevor Harris on the second to last play of the game. As for Montreal themselves, I think they didn't really play their best in this one, especially out of the gate. I thought the offensive line really struggled in this one. Hamilton's defensive line really pushed them around. I think really the major bright spot in this game for the Alouettes was Eugene Lewis, who is really, in my mind, is proving to be the number one receiver in the CFL. The guy just has everything from a skill set standpoint, and he can make those spectacular plays that get you back in football games, and he was really the engine behind Montreal's comeback effort in this one. So hopefully he can keep that going, and they can get a little bit more consistency from this offense and this team overall. They're right in the thick of things still at second place, tied with Hamilton now. And I just don't know going forward what's going to happen with this group. Is the quarterback situation settled? I think Trevor Harris, has played pretty well, but not amazing to keep the job. So, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with this team going forward. But, they're still right in the thick of things going into a back-to-back situation with Winnipeg the next couple of weeks. And then on the Hamilton side of things, the biggest takeaway for me was the defensive line finally showed up. I've been very critical, or at least I have thought that this defensive line has been underperforming this year, and they really stepped up, especially big free agent addition Micah Johnson, who had his first 2 sacks as a Tiger Cat. Julian Hauser on the edge played really well as well, and he's been playing well for the last several weeks here. And then Dylan Wynn has been the best player on that unit this season, and is the best player on that unit in my opinion. So I think that line really was a huge factor in why Hamilton was able to come away and win this game. But I think there are also concerning aspects for Hamilton in this game as well. They had another really slow fourth quarter. They had a lot of untimely fumbles, and the fumbles have just been unexplainable this year from Hamilton, just happening at the worst time. So, I don't know what's happening there. The interceptions seem to be cleaned up from Dane Evans, but the fumbles are still happening. The turnovers are still relatively high. So something to watch going forward. But Hamilton gets a really crucial victory to make themselves tied with the Montreal Alouettes for second in the East Division and ahead on the tiebreaker. Then the second game of the week, which is the BC Lions and the Saskatchewan Roughriders, with the BC Lions with a comeback victory 32-17 in this one. And starting from the Saskatchewan Roughriders' point of view, first of all, they just kind of ran out of gas in this one. They got off to a really good start, and I thought, they're really taking it to the Lions. But, they just seem like a team that's been gassed the last couple of weeks. I mean, a lot of guys coming off the injured list, maybe not in the best condition right now just because they've missed a lot of practice. Quarterback has been very banged up the entire season in Cody Fajardo, and that offensive line is really struggling right now for Saskatchewan. Has been a major problem the last several weeks. I believe they've allowed the most sacks in the CFL, and those tackles have been really, really rough for them this season. So, a lot of concerning aspects from this game if you're a Rough Riders fan. Now they've lost 3 games in a row, dropping to 4-4, and there seems to be such a gap right now between Saskatchewan and the other top 3 teams in the West right now, with BC, Calgary, and Winnipeg ahead of them. So I'm very interested to see if that gap closes over the next few weeks. I think Saskatchewan has a really rough schedule coming up. They have not played Winnipeg yet. They haven't played Calgary yet, and they just played BC for the first time. So it's going to be interesting to see if this team can pull it together. And, if not, I think they're probably destined for that crossover spot this season. And then for BC, this was really the statement win that they needed to have. I was really happy to see how they responded after going down early in this game. And they really showed that they were the more explosive team with all these playmakers that they had. Keon Hatcher has been really, really big for them this season with the Brian Burnham injury. I mean, Javon Catoy, a great Canadian target, almost like a tight end type body, really making a lot of tight contested catches, especially in the red zone. And they've just been really impressive this season, and this was one of their more impressive wins, in my opinion, going on the road at Mosaic and coming away with the victory. I also want to make special mention of, I think, one of the best free agent signings of this offseason, which was linebacker / defensive back Loucheiz Purifoy, who is just all over the place for this BC Lions defense. He is doing everything. He is covering down the field. He's making plays in the box. He's coming on the blitz. He can just do everything. He can also feature as a kick returner for you. He is an amazing player, and I think, he's one of the more underrated players in the league when you consider he didn't even make the All-Star team last season, even though I think he was far deserving of it, and I think you could argue right now he is one of the best defensive backs in the entire league. And then the third game of the week, which was the Winnipeg Blue Bombers beating the Calgary Stampeders 35-28 at McMahon Stadium, second time in a matter of 3 weeks. And starting from the Calgary Stampeders' point of view, first of all, they just didn't score enough touchdowns once again. They settled for field goals early in this game. I believe it was 6-0 at one point with 2 field goals on the first drive. So they were able to stop Winnipeg the first couple of drives of the game, but they were not able to get in the end zone and really build up that, that solid lead to make Winnipeg chased the game. So I thought that was really crucial. Winnipeg punched it in the end zone a bunch in this game. Zach Collaros was outstanding. But Bo Levi Mitchell, he was just kind of middle of the road. Didn't really make too many mistakes in this one, but also didn't make many spectacular plays. And when you compare him to the guy on the other side, which we'll talk about more in a minute, just not a whole lot of special there from Bo Levi. I definitely think he has played much better this year than he did last year, but I think there's still looks like a gap between those two quarterbacks right now. And I think another thing was there was no pressure from this defensive line on Zach Collaros. He kind of had all day to, sit back there and chuck passes down the field that break the secondary down. So honestly, I think Calgary is close. I just don't know how much closer they need to get in order to get over the hump and beat Winnipeg. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens the third time these two teams play. But, it's really hard to go against Winnipeg at this point and say that they aren't the number one team by far in the CFL because, they are closing out games. And really, they're one of the only teams in the league that is finding a way to play better in the fourth quarter than they do in the first half of games. A big side positive coming out of this game for Winnipeg is that they finally got that ground game going. Brady Oliveira had a really good game in this one. And I think that is such a key component for this team going forward. If they can get that running game going, they become an offense that is almost impossible to stop because they haven't really had a running game for the most part this season, and Zach Collaros has just made improvisational play after another, and it's been really, really impressive to see. But once he gets that ground game, they get that balanced offense along with this defense, they're going to be even a more impossible team to beat than they are right now. So, really impressive victory from the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in this one, and they are clearly the top team in the CFL right now, and I'll have to make a video about their dominance sometime soon. And then the final game of the week, which was the most surprising outcome of the week, which was the Ottawa Redblacks beating the Toronto Argonauts on the road 23-13. And starting from the Toronto Argonauts' point of view, first of all, this was a missed golden opportunity to really separate themselves or give them a little bit of more of a cushion in the East Division to go to 4-2 on the season. Instead, now they're at 3-3 going into a back-to-back against Hamilton. So if that goes 0-2, if they go 0-2 in those next 2 weeks, or if they get a split, they're in significantly worse position than they would have been otherwise. Still probably a favorite to make the playoffs out East in such a weak division, but I thought this was really a great opportunity and a missed opportunity to really stake their claim to that first spot in the East and really start building a lead there. And I think that this was really a team loss overall. I really wouldn't be too critical of McLeod Bethel-Thompson after this one. I thought he made some outstanding throws in this one, and he didn't really make too many of those back-breaking, head-scratching decisions. I just think it was an overall team loss. They could not get the ground game going at all in this one. Andrew Harris averaged about 2 yards per carry. Just not going to win when you're doing like that, especially given how much of a role he plays in the offense. I thought the defense had their fair share of breakdowns, especially deep down the field. So, honestly, I think there is room to turn it around. If you're the Argos, obviously only 3-3, and definitely not as bad a position as some other teams are in, but I think that Toronto missed a really big opportunity to advance themselves in the East Division. And then for the Ottawa Redblacks, I'm just so happy for Redblacks fans, man. They have gone through a lot in the last 3 years with how bad of seasons they've had the last 2 seasons. Really just like hopeless offense at a lot of points, and Caleb Evans is really starting to show that he could be potentially the guy long-term in Ottawa. He has strung together 3 really good starts in a row and finally was able to come out on the winning end of this one. I like his legs. I like his athleticism. I like, most of the decision-making with him. He doesn't make a ton of crucial mistakes. I don't know how much of a strong arm he really has. Doesn't really pop out of his hand, like I see other quarterbacks in the league, but I think he has enough there to really become a solid, base level CFL quarterback from a passing standpoint. I think he's one of the better athletes at quarterback in the league. So honestly, I think he is progressing very well for this offense, and maybe if they can string a couple wins together, they can get back in that playoff race in the East Division. So I'm really happy for the Redblacks that they were able to pull out the win here. But the last thing I wanted to mention here is Jalen Acklin, who is having an outstanding season for the Ottawa Redblacks. And honestly, I was thinking to myself, because, it's pretty obvious who's going to be, or who's in the conversation to be the nominee for the West Division MOP this year with Nathan Rourke and Zach Collaros. People can debate on that all day long, and one of those guys, it's probably it's certainty that those guys are going to win the award. But who is going to be the nominee from the East Division for Most Outstanding Player? And honestly, if I had to say right now, and I tweeted this out, I think it's Jalen Acklin who's having an outstanding season, and he is creating a lot of big plays for this offense. I swear, every time this offense makes a play, he is behind it. So, great to see that from a former Tiger Cat. Probably the biggest loss, arguably, so far this season, at least for guys that have left Hamilton to go to other places, and the production that they've had so far this season. Jalen Acklin has been outstanding for the Ottawa Redblacks and has really proven himself to be that #1 receiver that I didn't really think he was capable of going into the season. But with that said, that is going to be the end of this recap, ladies and gentlemen, and I apologize once again for not getting this out as early as I usually do. I got a lot going on in my life right now, so I apologize for that, guys. Hope everyone has a great day. Enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.